chaps, this is our last lesson that we learned, the last new thing before the test on Thursday. So I'm going to probably end up talking most of this lesson, if not all of it. And then next lesson, you guys are going to practice this exercise. This is exercise 14. Okay? And then we're going to have a couple more days, hopefully, for revision. It's a big test, guys. It's going to be a double lesson test. So it will be full test. There's a lot of stuff in trig. Right, let's start. So we've been working with graphs, and the first kind of questions, and you're going to have all of them in a test. The first type of question is where I give you a function like this, and then you need to sketch it. Then the second thing is in reverse. I give you a graph, and you need to find out the function. We did that last lesson, the last two lessons. Now, it looks like I'm giving you the graph and the function. So I'm telling you, all right, this blue graph is 2 cosine x. The red one is minus cosine x. So what is there left to do? We don't need to sketch it. We don't need to write the function. What we got to get to do is we need to analyze the graphs. So you will see what it means. Basically, they're asking us a whole bunch of questions. And yeah, we'll just go through them. So first of all, they want us to find OA, OB, and CD. Now, O I didn't draw. O is often the origin. Okay? And yeah, it will be drawn like this. So this is O. Okay? Now, why? What is OA?
0.
What makes you say 2, Janae? You're right, by the way. Why? Yeah. Great. Okay, so I can go O is the origin is 0. OA is the length OA. It's basically this length. Yeah. No. O itself, you're right. Here it's 0, 0. But OA is this length. Now you got to look at this graph. Well, that's like Renee said. That's the amplitude, and the amplitude of this we know is 2. From what we've learned, that you remember our normal formula. Maybe I'll write them here. Y equal a cosine x plus q. Thank you. Yeah, something like that. I think I use little letters. Let's use little letters. And the same thing for sine. And that's the amplitude. Okay. All right. So that's 2. Great. What about OB? Okay, now that you're going to watch what they're asking us, and I'll read it, they're asking us the length. So you're right that this point here is minus 1, but the length is 1. Yes, yeah. It's kind of like asking us, in this case, the amplitude, but you understand the length, how long it is. It is minus 1 because it's downward, but the length is 1. We happy with that?
Yes, sir.
CD, a little bit more difficult.
3, 1, 2, 3.
I think it's
3.
Okay. Right. So let's see. Over here, okay, what is this point? Let's say this bit. That is 1, because we know that this graph, the red graph, minus cosine x swings between minus 1 and 1, because the amplitude is 1. That minus, what does that minus mean? Didn't change the amplitude, it just flips it. Great. So this is 1, this bit. Okay? D, that swings from, we already said, that's from 2 to, what will that be? Minus 2. Doesn't look nicely. I didn't draw it very nice. It should have been a bit lower. So that is 2, and that is minus 2. That means the distance from here to here is 2. In other words, CD, you're absolutely right. Some of you said 1 plus 2 is 3. Okay? See, that's analyzing graphs. And we're going to be doing a lot of it in our next topic, functions. So I'm going to stop here, and I want you actually to copy that, and then we'll move on to the next question. Oh, it's a little bit skewed. Right, so now the next bit here, let's leave that. They're asking us, right, OE is 315 degrees. They tell you, or not 3 degrees, they just say OE is 315. Yeah, it is degrees. They have to say it's degrees. They're asking us to calculate EF. Now that is a really easy question. But if you've never done it before, I'll be very surprised as well. I will be very impressed if somebody just gets that. How do I know how long is this if this is 315 degrees?
Yes.
So wait,
What should that be?
Only 0 plus 315 equals 90 or 36.
No, it's simpler than that, but good try, Guzzo. Yes.
On the part
Yes.
where the both lines meet at 300, and maybe so we have to divide it by 4, so we get the 300.
Easier. Look. What does it mean that OE is 315 degrees? That means that the angle here, what is the angle here? I'm just going to write it here.
There's no angle, but
What if this is 0 and the length is 350 degrees? What's the angle here?
180.
Way easier. Guys, if this whole length is 315, what is, and this is 0, when that is that? It is 315. If this is 0 and this whole thing length is 315, that means this is 315. Now, if I just told you, okay, if the angle here is 315, what is EF? It's basically the value here. What is the value of the function here when this is 315? How would I know that? This is the function. How do I do it? It's 2 times cosine the angle. What's the angle? 315. Can you see it? That's all they ask us to find out. They ask us to find out the value of f. Okay, f is a function of x. Okay, so I put in, instead of x, what is x now? 315. Okay, so EF will be 2 times cosine 315, which is actually a special angle. Just help me out now. Yeah. Is it because it's 2 times square root 2 over 2. That's one of these special angles. You can cancel that, you get square root 2. If they ask you to write the answer in 2 decimal places, then press that SD button. That's right. How much is it? 1.41. Okay. You gotta watch out what they ask. Okay. Can you leave it as a surge? Remember what those we call those surges or decimal place. You understand? It's actually such an easy question. But the way it's phrased, I think most people will not get it if they've never seen it before. I'll just repeat it. If this length is 315, that means that the angle here is 315.
So how do they ask this question?
I'll read it. They're asking us, determine the length of EF if OE is 315 degrees. Okay? We are at A part 3. Okay? So what is EF? It's basically the value of this function here. That's the Y value. Okay, so we put 2 cosine 315. Okay, I'll give you a chance to write that down, and I'll raise it. I need that space. Okay, now we asked to find for which values of x all these things happen. So it's different question. Okay, so that's the first part, that's the second part. There's a whole bunch of questions here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I did one more, 7. Okay, so we've got 7 questions. We need to determine the values of x. Okay, I'm just gonna erase that. Oh, why did this not? Okay, we're looking at f of x equal to 0. Try and erase in your mind that red. Just look at the blue. When is f of x equal 0? Okay, it's here and here, right? Okay, so when does cosine equal 0? Yes, you're right, it's 90. Now at this point, if I were you, before I even attempt to answer that, I would label all these angles. And how would they do it? They told us, I didn't really tell you, but they told us that that the interval that this is drawn is from 0 to 360. So this is 360. What would that be? Or what would that be? 180. That will be 270, and that will be 90. So it's worthwhile actually doing that, and then we can answer these questions easy. When will f of x equal to be 0? When will that happen? What must x be? X is the angle in this case. F is the value of this function. This is a, and this is g. So when will f be 0? You told me already one angle. 90 and 270. So there's 2 angles. Okay, no, I shouldn't draw these things. Just 90 and 270. Okay, let's move on to G. When is G equal to 0?
Where's G?
G is already.
90 and 270.
The same thing, you're right. Okay, 90 and 270. Okay, right. When would F be 2?
At 0.
At 0 and 360, good. See, over here, they're equal to 2. When would G be equal to minus 1? G is the red one.
At 0 and
0 and 360. Okay, you see here and here, they're minus 1. I'm looking at the red. Okay, these are pretty easy. Let's move on to a little bit tricky. When will F smaller than 0?
D.
Minus 2.
So what's the answer?
When is F smaller than 0? Between which two angles?
90 and 270.
Good. So can you
between.
see between 90 and 270, F is
So
0.
there
It's
is a
not
square
at
bracket.
90. It's
Oh,
not
no.
90. Yeah. It's not 90 and 270. It's between 90 and 270. How do I write between? Okay, now already you're telling me square, not square.
Not
Okay,
square.
let's just leave this for a second. It's between 90 and 270. Okay, now is it going to include 90 and 270? No, because it actually must be under 9, smaller than 0.
Yeah.
At 90, we already said it's 0, so it needs to be smaller than 0, so it's going to be round brackets. Okay, so I'm reminding you how to work with these notation. Okay, so round brackets. Okay. All right. What about G? When will G be equal or smaller than 0?
It'll be 97.
What's smaller?
0 to
0 to
360.
no, it's not 0 to 360. 0 to 90
Included.
or
270.
70 to 360. So we have two regions. We have two regions, two separate regions. You don't have just one region. So the first one, I'll leave the brackets in a second, okay? The first one is between 0 and 90. That's one thing. Or the other one, you said 270 and 360. Okay, right. Let's decide. Are we having square?
Square.
We're having square because
From
it's
0 to
including 0. It is allowed to be 0. You're right. Okay, I'm just going to pause here just to answer any question. Okay. Now they're asking us when, for which values of x, f is large or equal to g. See, it's a bit difficult. Okay, which one is f? F is the blue one. When is f larger or equal to g?
0 to 90.
0 to 90. Can you see in this area, the blue graph is above the red graph. What they're asking us here, for which region of x the blue is above the f. So Twenga gave us one, between 0 and 90. What's the next part? 270 and 360. Can you see there's two parts where the blue graph is above the red graph, which is what they mean here. Okay. So when is that? We have two regions, 0 to 90 and 270 to 360. Okay, what kind of brackets?
Square.
Okay, we've got square. Why do we have square? Because we have, it could also be equal. Okay, I'll pause here for question and then we'll move on. Answer that. So Junaid asking, if we didn't have that equal sign, then it will just be, well, what would it be? Let's do another one. Actually, that's a good one. I don't know if you'll be able to see under it. Yeah. So if I don't want to erase this. If I had another question, question 8. F of x larger than g. Okay, what will be the difference? I'm still going to have the same numbers, right? Still the same numbers. But the brackets will be slightly different. What do you reckon? Completely round?
One square, one round.
Okay, which one is square, which one round? What? Let's start from here.
The one at the back is square.
So the zero still have a square because at 0, f is still larger, but at 90 they're equal. So that's going to be round. So we're going to have a square side and a round side. What about here?
Round and square.
At 270 they're equal. So we're not going to include 270, but at 360 definitely f is larger. So each one of these brackets will have one round and one square. Tricky. Okay, right. Give you some time to copy that. Okay, so the last kind of question that I can ask here, and there is maybe one more, but really tricky one, and I'll leave you today. Maybe tomorrow I'll probably mention that. Looking at f, for which value of x, f increases? Yeah.
270 to 360.
2 from?
No, from the 180 to
Correct.
360.
Can you see this graph? Imagine that you are in a super tube, like slide, okay? So it's a slide. Here we're going down. Whee! Yeah? And now we go up. Climb. Okay? So when is it increasing? From 180 to 360. So we write 180 to 360. Okay? So we include
Square brackets.
let's do square.
It's better.
If I really look at it, maybe I should probably have a round, but I'm not going to get into that detail with you. I don't want to write it down. I should write down
Why so?
round. Because at this specific point, it's actually
Include-
flat.
Does it not include
Doesn't
180?
include. Because at 180, it's kind of flat. But listen, I'm not, at this point, yeah, I don't want to get into that. It's not, if you write square brackets, I'm not going to take points off.
What if you just don't
And in
write
fact,
brackets?
that should be even also round.
What if you just don't write brackets?
Well, you have to, because then it looks like at 180 and at 360. You have to write some brackets, otherwise, you understand? Okay, decreasing. When is G, the red one, decreases?
180. Yeah.
It's actually the same answer, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay? So F was increasing from here to here, walk up. When is G decreasing? Decreasing at the same place, 180 to 360. Okay? Again, why am I doing these round brackets and not square? Because at these specific points, okay, you will learn that later in calculus. It's really beyond that level now, but in the trick you'll learn that actually it's horizontal here. Okay? Right. I'll pause here. We're going to practice. You guys are going to practice it next lesson.